To any up-and-coming or aspiring YouTube creators, especially those doing all this by themselves, I'd like to offer a bit of advice. Everyone always tells you that consistency is key when it comes to growing on YouTube, and they're right. But please, just don't do what I did. At the start of this year, I challenged myself to keep to a twice-a-week upload schedule, Mondays and Fridays every week, which is insane and completely unrealistic for one person to manage and keep up with. Now, for the first half of the year, I did a pretty good job keeping to that, and then I took the month of June off because we were moving into this apartment, and then I went back to work on making new videos all summer long. Then I got to September, and a mix of a bunch of cool, fun life events going on, me working my regular job and being exhausted from that, and just a lack of enthusiasm or excitement towards the videos that I had slated for the month of September kind of burnt me out and left me unmotivated to really work on anything else. So I just decided, fuck it, I'm not gonna make a big deal out of this. I'm just gonna take the month of September to rest and recoup, and in the meantime, I'll just get started on working on stuff for October and beyond. Sorry for disappearing for most of this month without much explanation, but as you guys know, it's just me on my own doing this as a hobby. And even though I'd like it to grow into something a lot bigger, if I don't have the energy or if I'm not excited to work on something, then I can't just force myself. What I did do throughout September as well as in August was I watched a bunch of movies. So, here are all the movies I watched the last 2 months. Requiem for a Dream was released in 2000 and was directed by Darren Aronofsky and is one of the most uncomfortable movie watching experiences I've ever had. I'm not gonna say much here because I'm saving my thoughts for another video I want to do, but long story short, it was amazing and I don't ever want to watch it again. UHF was released in 1989 and stars Weird Al as a down-on-his-luck TV manager trying to save his network from financial crisis. Me and Mendy, aka Delusional Daniel, watched this right after Requiem as a lighthearted palate cleanser, and for what it was a lot of fun. The movie spoofs were cute, there were a lot of off-the-wall sketches and gags that were really funny, and overall, I thought it was solid. Oh Hi stars Molly Gordon and Logan Lerman as a couple who spends the weekend in a cabin. After a misunderstanding, the girlfriend goes crazy and handcuffs the guy to the bed until she's convinced him to be with her. It sounds insane, but it was a pretty fun movie. The performances were solid, the premise was fun, and you do oddly sympathize with both parties, even though the girl is going every wrong way to deal with their issues. Together stars Dave Franco and Alison Brie, and I was kinda let down by it. It had an interesting concept, solid performances, and really juicy body horror, but I thought the characters were pretty insufferable. I thought what it had to say about codependent relationships wasn't super nuanced, and a lot of the time I was just bored. Bad Guys 2 is the sequel to the hit DreamWorks movie, and it was solid. I rated it on par with the first. The animation was great, especially during the action scenes. There were some funny moments, the voice acting was solid. It was an alright watch. Weapons is directed by Zach Kreger, the guy who did Barbarian, and as a director, this guy is 2-0. This movie was really good. Much like Barbarian, it helps if you go in with as little knowledge as possible, and also, like that movie, it took a bit to get going. But once it did get going, it just kept getting more and more insane and more fun. Worth checking out for sure. Strange Harvest is a mockumentary about a serial killer made to look like a true crime show. Honestly, if it weren't for the bad acting and hokey effects, it could have fooled some people. For a while, I was having fun laughing at how stupid it was, but then it kind of wore thin and I was just waiting for it to be over. Fixed is the new animated Netflix movie directed by Genndy Tartakovsky, and it was awful. If you've seen the trailers, you pretty much know what to expect from this movie, and after the first 8 minutes of shoving dog balls in my face, I was pretty much done. I guess this is the Sony pattern. Because they gave us K-pop Demon Hunters, they had to give us this piece of shit to balance out the universe. Shin Godzilla, originally released in 2016 and was re-released in theaters this August. I tend to like the destroyer side of Godzilla a bit more than the anti-hero thing the MonsterVerse is doing, so I liked this movie. It's not perfect, I think -1 was more emotionally resonant, but this was still a fun watch. Nobody 2 is the sequel to the 87 North action comedy starring Bob Odenkirk, and it was fun. I think the first one is better, but this still had some fun sequences, great kills, Christopher Lloyd is a national treasure. it was good. I also watched NEZHA 1 and NEZHA 2, a pair of animated movies from China that have gained a lot of attention after the sequel exploded at the box office earlier this year. The first film was surprisingly pretty good. I thought the animation was great, the action scenes were awesome. It was funny, but also heartfelt. The characters were entertaining, but also endearing. Some aspects of the story and characters felt undercooked, but for the most part, I really liked it. The sequel was, for the most part, even better. I could tell the English dub was a bit more rushed than the first film, but the action was even crazier, the story had more weight, the characters were more intriguing. These two movies were really damn good, and I'd be down to see a third one. Honey Don't is directed by Ethan Coen, and I know I gave a decently high rating to his previous film, Driveway Dolls, but this movie honestly has me rethinking it. It feels like an excuse to watch Margaret Qualley and Aubrey Plaza have sex, but there's no comedy or entertaining story to carry you through the rest of the movie. I was honestly just bored. Caught Stealing is once again directed by Darren Aronofsky and is so far the least fucked up movie of his that I've seen. It does still have a lot to say about coming to terms with your past and seeking redemption, and there are still some rough moments. But it's mostly an intense game of cat and mouse rather than the swan dive into madness that some of his other work was. My fiance made me watch Hoodwinked, which was released in 2005, and I feel like I need to give this another chance. I spent most of the movie distracted by the bad animation, and the rest of the movie pretty bored, with the occasional chuckle here and there. But everyone swears up and down that this movie is hilarious, so maybe I'll come back to this one. One of my September uploads that I scrapped was a video where I watch every Conjuring movie. I watched the first one and it was decent. I thought the Warren story was interesting, I thought there were some solid cinematography and decent performances, but I didn't really have any strong reactions, positively or negatively. So I didn't think I had enough for a full video. Same with the first Annabelle, which I've already watched before. I got about halfway through and I just couldn't finish it. I was mainly just bored and I was starting to become less and less interested in doing this video. Twinless stars and is directed by James Sweeney and is about two young men who meet at a twin bereavement support group and form an unlikely bromance. And for the sake of spoilers, I will stop there, because while that is technically the premise of the movie, it is not what the movie is about. It's worth checking out just for the turn it takes, but also because it's a pretty good movie. Splitsville is a chaotic romantic comedy about a guy rejecting his divorce who gets tangled up in his best friend's open relationship. I thought it was alright. I think the second half is much funnier, even though the story kind of loses itself. The cast is a lot of fun, the situation is absurd. It's nothing incredible, but it was fine. The Roses is a remake/adaptation of the Warren Adler book, The War of the Roses, and it was a lot of fun. I really liked how chaotic it got and how deep this couple's hatred and pettiness gets. Benedict Cumberbatch and Olivia Colman were really good in it. It was very funny. I'd recommend checking it out. The Long Walk is based on a Stephen King novel and was one of the most brutal watches of all time. Even though the trailer basically shows you most of the movie, even though you can guess many of the directions the story goes, it's still so emotionally effective and visceral. This is very much a journey over destination type movie. The atmosphere is chilling, it gets very gross and hard to watch, and the performances are all Oscar-worthy across the board. The Baltimoreans is directed by Jay Duplass, and it was cute. I don't know why they're releasing a Christmas movie at the end of September, but it was a charming little watch. The actors were really solid, the situation was interesting and felt very relatable. It had a lot of heart, it had a lot of humor. It won't be for everyone, but I enjoyed it. Him is directed by Justin Tipping and produced by Jordan Peele, and the reactions to it can generously be described as mixed. I can completely understand some of the backlash it's getting. The storytelling is very overt. There is not a subtle bone in this movie's body, and there are sections in the middle that can get kind of boring. But I enjoyed some of the more campy, over-the-top aspects. The cinematography was great, the performances are solid, with Marlon Wayans being the easy scene stealer. A Big, Bold, Beautiful Journey stars Colin Farrell and Margot Robbie, and it was meh. The performances were fine, the concept was interesting enough, but for the most part, I was pretty bored, and I didn't really care enough about their journey to be invested the whole way through. Click on the left to watch my video on the Forgotten Kids for Character sequel, and click on the right to watch my video of the rest of the mainline Gravity Falls books. And of course, comment below letting me know what you've been watching the last 2 months.